A very good day to all of my viewers. Hope all of you is healthy. Myself is Sushmita Veerasinghe. So before I dive deep into the topic that I'm going to present, a small introduction of mine. Welcome back. So today I am going to present about the effects of child neglect. Before we dive deep into the topic, what is child neglect? Child neglect is defined as a parent's or caregiver's inability to provide for a kid's basic mental, physical, and emotional development needs. The Children and Young Persons Act, known as CYPA, defines a child as someone under the age of 14 and a young person as someone between the ages of 14 and 16. As a result, any individual under the age of 16 who is abused is considered a victim of child abuse and is protected under this act. Child neglect is one of the most frequent kinds of child maltreatment, and it remains a significant issue for many children. There are several types of child neglect. The inability to supply a kid with the basics of life, such as food, clothing, is referred to a physical neglect. Medical neglect occurs when a child's fundamental health care needs are not met by his or her caretakers. Failure to give emotional support, such as emotional stability and encouragement, is referred to as emotional neglect. Failure to offer a kid's experiences for critical growth and development, such as not sending a child to school or failing to provide them with an education, is referred to as educational or developmental neglect. A report by the Women and Community Development Ministry had recorded 2,040 child abuse cases in just the first 4 months of the year 2021, where 35% of those cases had involved neglect and around another 30% were incidents of physical and sexual abuse. As the number of child neglect is getting huge, all of us should not overlook it and have to realize the effects of child neglect so that we can rescue them from the violent environment. Specifically, some of the child neglect effects are physical health consequences, psychological consequences, behavioral implications, and societal consequences. In the first place, child neglect may cause various physical health consequences. There are some long term physical consequences of neglect that occur quickly. For example, brain damage caused by head trauma. Some others take months or years to occur. So it's crucial to be aware that any kind of mistreatment can have long term bodily implications. Medical neglect of children has been related to an increased risk of long term or future medical problems such as diabetes, lung disease, vision problems, functional limitations as being limited in activities, heart attack, high blood pressure, chronic bronchitis, cancer, stroke, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Child mistreatment has also been related to the inability of some parts of the brain to develop or operate normally. For example, a reduction in total brain volume may alter the size and function of the following parts of the brain, such as the amygdala, a part of the brain responsible for processing emotions. The hippocampus is a part of the brain that is involved in learning and memory. The orbitofrontal cortex is in charge of decision making based on reward and emotion control. The corpus callosum is a structure in the brain that is responsible for left brain right brain communication and other functions such as arousal, emotion, and higher cognitive abilities. All this will be at the least functioning compared to a kid who is leading a happier and healthier lifestyle. The rarest is epigenetics. This refers to a temporary or permanent change in how an individual's genes are produced and processed. These modifications can even be transmitted to the individual's offspring. Life events such as child abuse or addiction misuse can produce epigenetic changes. For example, one study discovered that maltreated children had mutations in genes linked to cancer, cardiovascular disease, immunological disease, bipolar disorder, and depression. Briefly, the physical consequences of child neglect are way too serious as it can also cause death if it is prolonged. Besides that, child neglect can result in a range of psychological issues. Victims of mistreatment may experience feelings of isolation, anxiety, and distrust, which can lead to long term psychological implications such as educational challenges, low self esteem, depression, and difficulty developing emotional bonds. Moreover, working memory, self control, and cognitive flexibility, such as the capacity to look at objects and situations from many viewpoints, can all be harmed as a result of brain development disruption caused by abuse or neglect. Next, it's mental and emotional health issues. Childhood mistreatment puts people at risk for depression, anxiety, and other mental illness at an older age. Adults having a history of adverse childhood experience, which is known as ACE, were shown to have a greater rate of suicide attempts than those who did not. Furthermore, adults with serious depression who were neglected as children had lower antidepressant treatment results, especially if the neglection happened when they were 7 or smaller. Last are attachment issues and social ills. Attachment problems can occur in infants in foster care who have suffered maltreatment. Attachment issues can make it difficult for a kid to build healthy peer, social, and romantic connections later in life. Furthermore, children who have been abused or neglected are more prone to develop antisocial qualities as adults, which can lead to criminal activity. Besides that, post traumatic stress disorder, which is known as PTSD, is characterized by symptoms such as continuous re experiencing of traumatic events related to the abuse, so they avoid people, places, and events connected with the maltreatment because of feeling fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame, and nervousness or other mood changes. PTSD in children can lead to despair, suicidal behavior, drug abuse, and rebellious behaviors well into adulthood, affecting their ability to thrive in school or to maintain vital relationships. To sum up, child neglect results in psychological issues, root the victim to live an unhealthy social life. Even after the maltreatment has gone, victims of child abuse or child neglect frequently demonstrate behavioral problems. The following are some instances of how childhood neglect might influence teenage and adult behaviors. Sexual habits that are harmful to one's health. According to studies, abused or neglected children are more prone to participate in sexual risk taking when they make the transition from childhood, including having a greater number of sexual partners and beginning sexual relations sooner. Their risk of developing a sexually transmitted illness is increased by their behavior and forced sex, such as sex exchange for money, gifts, or other society and contribute. Adult criminality is also a result of juvenile delinquency. Several studies have found a link between childhood maltreatment with future violent behavior and criminal behavior. Children who are subjected to physical and emotional neglect are more prone to develop antisocial behaviors and build friendship with other unpleasant people, according to research funded by the National Institute of Justice, which is part of the US Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs. Furthermore, the way child maltreatment promotes violent action differs between girls and boys. Girls tended to display internalizing behaviors such as sadness, social withdrawal, and anxiety leading up to adult criminal conduct. whereas boys tended to express externalizing behaviors such as bullying, violence, and hostility. Bullying, violence, and hostility may lead to a criminal behavior as an adult. Moreover, the use of alcohol and other drugs are also listed under the behavioral problems of child neglect effects. People who were mistreated as children have a dramatically higher chance of developing drug use diseases than adults who were not abused or neglected. Analyzing this, a neglection can even transform a child into a criminal or a behavioral problem person in their adulthood to overcome their past, fear which proportionally will increase the rate of crimes in the country. The physical, psychological, and behavioral implications of child abuse and neglect are profound, but the effects of mistreatment do not end there. Child abuse and neglect cost society either directly, such as hospitals and foster care expenses, nor indirectly, such as long term care, missed school performance, delinquency, and criminal justice system costs. The cost of child maltreatment in the United States was calculated using the year of 2015 data by experts from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. The researchers projected an overall cost of $831 billion per kid for requiring hospitalization events of child maltreatment and a lifetime cost of $16.6 million per child for death occurrence of child maltreatment. The yearly cost of requiring hospitalization child maltreatment in the United States was estimated to be $428 billion based on the number of clear examples of injuries maltreatment, or to be known as $2 trillion based on the number of investigated cases of requiring hospitalization maltreatment. In this study, expenses include both physical, such as child welfare, health care, and juvenile justice, and emotional, such as stress, suffering, and loss. According to research, abuse and neglect can lead to homelessness or social insecurity among children and youth. Although homelessness is more likely to occur in adulthood, the Australian Bureau of Statistics (ABS) projected that 2,503 children were homeless on census night in 2011. Domestic and familial violence was the most common cause for escorted youngsters to seek help, which is 33%. Young individuals who have been removed from their parents' care due to abuse or neglect may experience homelessness and employment soon after they leave out of home care, for an instance, when they turn 18. Young people's challenges in finding suitable accommodation and jobs for the following care are sometimes attributed to the absence of social support networks and poor academic performance due to the guardian's emotional neglect and developmental neglect. Thus, child neglect will not only affect the victims but also impacts society neither directly nor indirectly. In conclusion, early exposure to abuse or neglect, according to science, can undermine healthy development and have long term implications. For example, those children can be unpredictable or inappropriate actions that can impact how children learn, solve issues, and relate to others. Child insufficiency care or neglect has negative implications but can be repaired or decreased with appropriate and proper treatments. Even so, just removing a young kid from an insufficiently adaptive setting does not ensure beneficial results. To offset the negative consequences of chronic poverty and assist recovery, children often require therapeutic strategies and highly supportive care. Providing safe, secure environments for young children to develop and learn builds a solid basis for both their futures and a flourishing, wealthy community. So that's all from me. Thank you.